Let's talk about orchid essences that can help you to travel through life effortlessly and intuitively. How often does someone wish for a second chance? Just to start over without the burden of everything they have experienced, said and done, what they were convinced of and what they were so wrong about. Clear the air and the past. Then maybe I'll be allowed to get closer again to the person I've hurt so much. Many people know how to do this. Others find it infinitely difficult. They carry what happened around with them and let it weigh them down. Before they even do anything, they already internally hear scornful and bitter laughter and reproaches and see how the other person turns away and even goes over to the attack. Knowing how badly the attempt will end for them, they refrain from it. But all this takes place only in the head. Based on what you have experienced in the past, you extrapolate your experience in the future. Couldn't it also turn out quite differently if I assume something different? Every new beginning requires a new orientation. Only when you're in a position to believe that a different course of events is possible, will you also be prepared to strive for it. To do this, you must let go of the old and discover the new. For this purpose, there is a series of 7 orchid essences that provide us with the energy to make this possible. How different life could be if we only succeeded in throwing off the ballast of our thoughts, beliefs, expectations, and assumptions. The first set of orchid essences is called the Ideal Journey. Thematically, it is based on the image of a journey on which, as always in life, it can also get a bit bumpy. You take the wrong direction and have to row back, a headwind blows in your face and it becomes really difficult. You may not find this ideal, but it follows an inner logic that corresponds to your personal development in the best possible way. The outside is rarely flawless. No one is consistently healthy. Everyone experiences setbacks, loss, and conflict. The ideal journey refers to what is happening on the inside. It describes a sequence of developmental steps that can transform such a journey from a disaster into an adventure. After all, if everything goes smoothly, it does not necessarily mean that everything goes well. Frictionlessness is not the desired ideal in the orchid sense. Being able to react to friction consciously, flexibly, and appropriately can bring us closer to the ideal of who we actually want to be. Therefore, the essence Purify is suitable to support any new beginning. It lets us throw off old burdens and gives you openness and freedom in exchange. Do you doubt that you deserve a second chance? What would you rather let go of, the second chance or the doubts? What helps you and what doesn't? Purify is the great clearing flower. It clears the air inside, lets you sort out what is no longer useful, relieves, unburdens, and uplifts. If you use Purify, you will notice after a while that you approach things more impartially, that previously intimidated you or that you did not trust yourself to do. Give the effect a little time, just as you give yourself some time. All change requires habituation, otherwise you will fall back into the old behaviors as if pulled by an invisible rubber band. They just feel more familiar. If you notice this phenomenon in yourself, on the one hand, there is relief. On the other hand, every new behavior feels somehow strange or inappropriate. Then it is time for the following step, which is supported by the Discover Orchid. Instead of falling back on old patterns, Discover motivates you to go on a discovery tour. After all, you already know the old. It won't run away from you. The new, on the other hand, can happen without you if you ignore it. Discover awakens the spirit of discovery, the childlike curiosity. The flower lets you approach the new instead of avoiding it. Maybe it offers you something valuable, useful, or even fascinating. If you close your eyes to it, you will never know. Do you have a tendency to avoid the unknown and miss on good opportunities? If so, this would be an opportunity to readjust your inner focus. This is what Discover makes easier for us. There is a logical step that follows. You have freed yourself from the old and opened up to the new, and in doing so, you have initiated a change in your perception, including the perception of yourself. Now it is time to take action, to actively intervene in what is happening and to do something with the new. Do you still feel a certain tendency to wait and remain passive? Then you can use the Orchid Create to help you bring out your inner creator. It personifies the power that makes you curious about all that can be done with what you have experienced, learned, and acquired. You no longer remain the plaything of fate, you shape it yourself. You create something new out of what you have found, you shape it according to your wishes, you become creative and feel the pleasure in the activity of influencing the things of your life, embellishing them and giving them your personal touch. Think of a musical instrument that you have learned to use. You don't stop when you master the scales. The fun really starts when you can play whole songs, maybe even invent some yourself. You add the power of creativity to your personality. Once again, you have changed. For this, you had to do nothing more than let go of useless things, curiously turn to the new possibilities and make something out of them. And that has made something new out of you. You're ready for the next phase. Learn to love doing the things that you do. Learn to love those who don't share your opinion. Has it ever occurred to you to love the air that you breathe? Find the well of love within yourself. What is it actually like to love? Everyone uses this word, and yet the question remains, does he and she mean it the same way? Or do they understand something different from it? The quote from Jerry Rubin comes to mind. How can I say I love you after hearing Cars Love Shell? Don't be a machine. On your orchid journey, you have now begun to determine for yourself to a greater extent how you think and act. What would you think about climbing another rung on the ladder of development and now also deciding for yourself how, what, and whom to love? Not waiting to be struck by a lightning, so to speak, because suddenly someone appears in front of you who really blows your mind. How often does that happen? And yet, secretly, many are convinced that this is exactly how it has to be. The only thing they can do based on this belief is to increase their chances by, for example, visiting dating portals and looking at countless portraits there, hoping to be struck by lightning through a photograph. This leaves you in passivity. You still haven't started to develop yourself into a lightning. Accordingly, the Orchid Love lets us go a completely different way. It directs the gaze inward and lets love find there. Then you can strengthen it, let it overflow as it were, so that you shine up to both ears like having fallen in love already. Thus, on the one hand, you become independent of the coincidence that will push a lovable person your way. On the other hand, it takes the despair out of your face that makes others recoil so easily. Love makes you realize that loving is something active. You can't do it yourself. You just have to get rid of the idea that you have to meet certain requirements for it. But in case of hindering residual deposits in the soul, We still have a few drops left in the purified bottle, don't we? You have become independent of love on the outside because you possess love on the inside. Ready for a new experience? Enlighten could offer you that. This orchid will keep you blooming. It enables to radiate your being to the outside and inspire your environment. You suddenly discover things that you've never noticed before. Incidentally, this is also the case for others, because they discover you. Inspiration is not a one-way street. Inspiration can work both ways. Enlighten brings light to previously poorly exposed parts of life. You understand how everything is connected and works, how the particles interlock and what role you can play on the whole. In this light, you can make decisions that are in harmony with your nature and your love. Before we get to the rounding out of the ideal journey, one more step should be mentioned. Imagine having had all the experience mentioned and having now acquired skills and qualities. How about a little fine-tuning then? Learned things become internally unconscious at a certain point. When you read a text, you don't have to figure out what the individual letters mean like a school beginner. You read easily, effortlessly, and fluently. As long as you have to think about certain sequences and actions, you are not yet in the flow. Instead, you may occasionally fumble a bit. There's nothing wrong with taking a short pause for reflection every now and then, but it's more fluid and elegant with the help of the orchid called flow. When you enlist its help, you get into a flow. Things happen spontaneously, as it were. You don't think much anymore, you act. And you act in according with your newly established inner helmsman. When you have internalized your skills in such a way that you can use them intuitively, not even aware of your inner helmsman, one action follows the other as if by itself. You follow an inner compass without even realizing it and can focus your attention entirely on your activity in the here and now. The readjustment of certain sequences takes place as with every internalized sequence of actions without the intervention of the conscious mind. You become absorbed in what you are doing, like an artist who sinks completely into the creative process and doesn't hear when someone rings the doorbell. A feeling of euphoria sets in. You forget the time and don't want to stop. That is the flow experience. You see, the ideal journey is about preparation, inner alignment, and training for the journey of life. It marks an inner development towards self-knowledge, self-awareness, and self-determination. The only thing missing now is the icing on the cake. The orchid suitable for this purpose is called Complete. It helps you to catch your breath, sit down, take a break, and look back on what you've achieved. The rounding off of the process, not its end, because every end also marks a beginning. Complete can be understood as a summary and consolidation of success, but also as a springboard for new adventures, which are now no longer given a direction by negative experiences, but are facilitated by the acquired maturity and wisdom. Complete allows us to understand what we have learned in a holistic sense. Where has my journey taken me? Is the destination as I had dreamed it? Is it different? Better? Who have I become? Do I want to stay here for a while? Or do I want to leave soon? Now I see the big picture of what lies behind me. This whets my appetite for the even bigger picture that lies ahead. Now I can start again, or devote myself to the seemingly more mundane things in life that I had neglected. In this case, I could look at the orchids of the second set, because these deal with the issues of everyday life and give them a new meaning and a new perspective.